Welcome to Frame Dropped. New Game Plus is a mode that more gamers seem to want and that more developers seem to implement into their games. That's quite common nowadays, with The Witcher 3, the Dark Souls series, God of War and Marvel's Spider-Man being only a few examples. But what about earlier titles? We're going to dive into the past, look at some of gaming history's uses of the NG Plus mode and ask the question, who did it first? If you see the option for selecting New Game Plus in the menu after finishing a game, it usually means that you can start a new game but keep all your weapons, items and so on. This is often paired with a higher difficulty. This feature allows developers to add a lot of replay value to their products without too much effort, and gamers that just can't get enough of a specific game happily accept. Although not quite as overly used as today, the games of the past have often implemented New Game Plus-like features that differ in name and execution from case to case. This mode was often used in RPGs, such as the Dark Souls and Borderlands series. In these cases, the game restarts with the character retaining their experience and inventory, minus specific scripted items that progress the story, and the levels are harder because the enemies take less damage and so on. But apart from that, it doesn't really add a lot of new stuff to the existing experience. A game with this was vastly different is Astro Boy Omega Factor, released for the Game Boy Advance in 2003. Here the New Game Plus mode was woven into the story. As you reach a mandatory bad ending in the first playthrough, you need to use your time travel abilities and use the game's stage select in order to find the good ending. A game series that I personally remember for having a memorable New Game Plus mode is 2002's Ratchet & Clank. After the credits and the final cutscene, the game will ask the player if they want to return to the point before the final boss was defeated, or if they want to start the so-called challenge mode. The difference to a usual New Game Plus mode is that Ratchet & Clank only lets you buy and upgrade specific weapons in the challenge mode, so it adds another layer to it, as you really need to play the game at least twice if you want to unlock and upgrade everything. Of course, there are also other games like Resident Evil 4 and the Metal Gear Solid series where you can only unlock specific items in other playthroughs, but Ratchet & Clank had the first New Game Plus mode that I remember playing, and I did it over and over again. But the first game to be officially considered to have the first New Game Plus mode is the 1995 RPG Chrono Trigger, with its mode called New Game Plus. So that's where the name comes from. The New Game Plus concept in Chrono Trigger is pretty basic. You complete the game, you start a new one and get to keep your character level and equipment, but you lose your money and any story-specific items. This is the first modern concept of a New Game Plus mode as we know it. Although it is pretty primitive in its form, it revolutionized the added replayability value to games, and therefore the exact term from Chrono Trigger is still widely used today. But which game was actually the very first game with a New Game Plus type mode? This one is really hard to answer because there have been many games with far descendants of New Game Plus modes throughout history. Many early PC games, for example, threw the player back to the beginning after completing the main game. But the first mode similar to New Game Plus that I was able to find dates back to the year 1987 and to the game Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link for the Nintendo Entertainment System. After you finish the game, you go back to the beginning, but you get to keep your lives and endgame stats, which makes the notoriously hard game much easier the second time around, because back then the enemy difficulty didn't scale while using this mode. Did we miss anything? Do you know even earlier examples of New Game Plus modes? What do you think about that development in general? Tell us in the comments below, please leave a like and subscribe. See you next time!